Why Elon Musk sold all his possessions. Shocking truth behind his minimalist lifestyle. Lately, I've been reflecting deeply on the role possessions play in our lives. It might seem unexpected coming from someone leading multiple groundbreaking companies, but this reflection led to one of the most transformative choices I've ever made. If you want to hear the real reason I decided to part with nearly everything I own, just comment "freedom." When I announced I was selling my homes and most of my belongings, the reaction was intense. The media speculated wildly. Was it financial trouble? A publicity stunt? A new obsession? The truth is far simpler and more profound. It all began 2 years ago during an especially grueling stretch at work. Tesla was grappling with production hurdles, SpaceX faced launch delays, and I was clocking 120-hour workweeks, sometimes sleeping on the factory floor. I hadn't seen my kids in months. Exhaustion overwhelmed me like never before. One night, I finally returned to my sprawling 16,000 square foot mansion in the Bay Area. It was a masterpiece of design and luxury, yet instead of relief, I felt suffocated. Walking through room after room filled with carefully curated furniture and art, I realized I barely noticed any of it anymore. 7 bedrooms, but I only slept in one. 5 bathrooms, though I only needed one. A dining room seating 20, yet I rarely had dinner with anyone. Surrounded by all these symbols of success, a simple question struck me: what is all this really doing for me? Not what it says about me to others, nor its financial value, but what actual benefit does it bring to my daily life? I couldn't find a satisfying answer. I recalled my grandfather's wisdom from his tough years in South Africa: the more possessions you have, the more they possess you. That night, those words finally resonated deeply. Every item in that house demanded upkeep, cleaning, security, insurance, taxes. Each room required heating, cooling, repairs. The pool, landscaping, driveways, all needed constant attention and resources. But beyond time and money, there was a hidden cost, a psychological burden. Each possession represented a past decision, a responsibility, a claim on my mental energy. Sitting at my custom kitchen table, I began listing what truly added value to my life, what I genuinely needed versus what I'd accumulated out of habit or image. The essentials were surprisingly few. That weekend, instead of going to the office, I methodically examined every item in the house, asking myself, if I didn't already own this, would I buy it today? Does it add more value than the freedom I'd gain by letting it go? For most things, the answer was no. I realized I'd fallen into a common trap, collecting possessions not because they enriched my life, but because they fit an unexamined image of success. What I truly valued wasn't these things, it was freedom. Freedom to focus on work that excites me. Freedom to spend undistracted time with my children. Freedom to move swiftly, think clearly, and make decisions based on what matters most. Every possession that didn't support these priorities wasn't neutral, it was a drag. So I decided to sell almost everything, starting with the houses. Not because I couldn't afford them, but because I couldn't afford the cost they imposed on my focus, freedom, and clarity. The public reaction was fascinating. Some thought I was having a breakdown, others suspected tax maneuvers. Few grasped that this was the most rational choice aligned with my true values. Selling was emotional. Each home held memories, each object told a story. Doubts crept in as I parted with things once cherished. But with every sale, every emptied room, I felt relief, as if I could finally breathe deeply. Now, I live in a modest rental, own very little, and buy what I need when I need it. The mental clarity this brings is remarkable. Without the constant drain of managing possessions, my mind is sharper, more focused on what truly matters. This isn't a call for everyone to sell everything. Rather, it's an invitation to question the assumptions we make about what we need to be happy or successful. Too often, possessions start as desires, become perceived necessities, and end up as burdens we don't know how to shed. We become caretakers of our own museums, maintaining collections that serve no real purpose. True freedom isn't about having everything, it's about being unburdened by what you don't need. One moment crystallized this for me. A month after selling my main house, I found an expensive watch in storage I'd forgotten owning. It had sat unused for years, adding no value, only worry. Giving it away to someone who would appreciate it daily brought me more joy than owning it ever did. Material things can bring joy, comfort, tools, sentimental items, but for every valuable possession, most of us have dozens that don't. We rarely consider the cumulative mental and emotional cost of maintaining them. Since simplifying, I make decisions differently, less inclined to solve problems by buying more creative in finding solutions without acquisition. I sleep better, am more present with my children, and can pivot quickly when needed. I appreciate the few things I own more deeply. This journey also reshaped my view of time. Managing possessions consumes hours we often don't notice losing. Eliminating most of mine freed up time I didn't realize I was spending. Many live in time poverty, not from lack of hours, but from hours spent maintaining things that don't truly matter. Interestingly, this shift enhanced my work. Some assumed selling my homes meant I was stepping back from my companies. The opposite is true. Simplifying my life created mental and emotional space to focus intensely on building technologies that can impact humanity's future. I now see my previous attachment to multiple large homes and possessions as unconscious compensation, perhaps for overwork, lack of family time, or insecurities about status. Possessions didn't solve these issues, they masked them. There's a clarity in eliminating distractions. Ideas flow more freely, priorities sharpen, decisions become clearer. This isn't about extreme minimalism or moral superiority, but about thoughtful reduction, choosing consciously what deserves space in your life. I discovered many purchases were made unconsciously, driven by assumptions about what someone in my position should have, not what truly enhanced my life. Art, for example. I owned many expensive pieces I thought I should appreciate, but few brought daily joy. The same with houses. Did I need multiple large properties? Was I using them enough to justify their enormous cost and mental overhead? The honest answer was no. This experience reshaped my understanding of wealth. Traditional views focus on accumulation, more money, more property, more stuff. But real wealth can come from needing less, from freedom from excess, from focusing resources on what truly matters. At Tesla and SpaceX, we've applied this principle, cutting unnecessary processes, questioning defaults, focusing intensely on what advances our core mission. The result: faster, more adaptable, more focused companies. Many people intuitively understand this as they age. Downsizing isn't loss but liberation, recognizing what truly matters and letting go of the rest. But we don't have to wait. We can ask now, what am I maintaining that doesn't enhance my life? What am I holding out of habit, not value? What if I let it go? The answers might surprise you. I'm not saying everyone should sell their homes or belongings. But I encourage asking, if I didn't already own this, would I buy it today? For the things that don't pass this test, consider letting them go, not to deprive yourself, but to free yourself. In a culture that pushes more, choosing less can feel radical, but it might be the most liberating choice you ever make. Since sharing this, many assume I advocate living with bare essentials like a monk. Not at all. I advocate intentionality, owning what genuinely serves you, not accumulating by default. I still own clothes I enjoy, books I value, tools that help me work. Everything I own now has earned its place through conscious choice. Possessions often promise freedom, luxury, options, status, but too often they restrict freedom, limiting our ability to change, move, and focus on what matters. I sold almost everything because I value freedom more than possessions, the freedom to pursue fascinating work, to be fully present with loved ones, to change course without the weight of accumulated things. That freedom is worth far more than anything I sold. I think often of my grandparents, who lived through scarcity and had a different relationship with possessions. They kept what was useful, repaired what was broken, passed on what was no longer needed. Nothing was disposable or acquired thoughtlessly. There was wisdom in that approach, a recognition that what surrounds us shapes our experience and lives. Looking back at my enormous homes filled with beautiful but burdensome things, I don't feel loss. I feel awakened from a trance that told me I needed all that to be happy or successful. The truth was the opposite. I needed to be unburdened. One memory stands out: selling a house with a stunning view I once thought indispensable. Standing on the terrace one last time, I realized the joy came from experiencing the view, not owning it. I can enjoy beautiful views anywhere without owning a multi-million-dollar property. That realization, that experience and ownership are separate, has been liberating. Simplicity brings clarity. When you remove the unnecessary, what remains shines. Priorities sharpen. Choices become intentional. That clarity is the greatest gift of this journey. If I could speak to my younger self, I'd say, true wealth isn't what you own, but what owns you. Freedom comes not from having everything, but from needing very little. The most valuable things, meaningful work, deep relationships, time to think, are enhanced by simplicity and hindered by complexity. No object, no matter how beautiful or expensive, is worth the mental freedom lost to excess. This journey has made me question other defaults I once accepted. If I was wrong about needing multiple homes and possessions, what else might I be wrong about? Questioning assumptions leads to choices better aligned with true values. The philosopher Diogenes said, "It is not that I own little, but that you want a lot." Much of what we think we need is manufactured desire, created by comparison, marketing, or unconscious assumptions. When we honestly assess what enhances our lives, health, presence, creativity, the list is often much shorter than we think. For me, that list includes meaningful work, time with my children, good health, mental clarity, close relationships, continuous learning, and freedom to pursue ideas that help humanity. Almost everything else is optional. I'm still evolving. I haven't reached perfect minimalism, nor do I want to. The goal is alignment, surrounding yourself with what truly matters, not what others say should matter. Sometimes I'm tempted by new things promising marginal improvement. Now I recognize the pattern and ask, will this truly enhance what matters, or just add maintenance and eventual discard? The biggest surprise has been how this has affected my happiness. I didn't sell possessions to be happier, but to gain freedom and focus. Yet happiness has increased. There's a lightness in owning less, needing less, being less tethered to things. A sense of possibility and flexibility absent when burdened by possessions tied to money and identity. If this resonates, try a simple experiment. Pick one area, your closet, kitchen, digital files, schedule, and ask ruthlessly, if I didn't already have this, would I add it today? Then thoughtfully let go of what doesn't pass. See how it affects your clarity, focus, and freedom. You might find many things you thought were assets are liabilities, that what you thought served you actually demands service. This isn't deprivation. It's liberation. It's choosing consciously what deserves space rather than accepting what's already there. For me, choosing to own less has been the most profound step toward living freely and fully. The truth is none of those things. The reason I made this choice is much deeper, far simpler, and far more transformative than anyone realized. It began during one of the hardest stretches of my life. Tesla was fighting through production nightmares. SpaceX was scrambling to hit impossible launch deadlines. I was working 120-hour weeks, sometimes sleeping on the factory floor just to stay close to the problems. I was drained, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And one night, after weeks of non-stop pressure, I finally made it back to my mansion. 16,000 square feet. Every detail perfect. Marble, glass, steel, priceless art. The kind of home most people dream about. But as I walked through the echoing hallways, something unexpected hit me. Not peace. Not relief. Suffocation. I had 7 bedrooms. I only used one. Multiple dining rooms I never sat in. Bathrooms I never touched. Each space was immaculate, designed for a life I wasn't even living. I stood in the middle of all that luxury and realized I felt emptier than ever. That night, a memory surfaced. My grandfather once told me, the more things you own, the more they end up owning you. Those words had never struck me harder. Suddenly, I could see the truth in every polished surface around me. These possessions weren't free. They carried weight. They demanded security, maintenance, taxes, attention. Every single object represented a choice I had made, a responsibility I had accepted, a piece of my mental bandwidth they quietly consumed. And what was I getting in return? Almost nothing. So I sat down at my kitchen table, another perfect object I barely noticed anymore, and started making a list. What actually mattered to me? What brought value? What did I need? The list was shockingly short. The next weekend, instead of heading to the factory, I walked room to room and asked myself one question: if I didn't already own this, would I choose it again today? The answer, over and over, was no. That's when I knew I had to let go. Not because I couldn't afford these things, but because I couldn't afford what they were costing me: clarity, focus, freedom. When I told the world I was selling everything, the reaction was intense. Some called it a breakdown. Others thought it was some elaborate tax strategy. Hardly anyone understood that it was actually the most rational decision of my life. Letting go wasn't easy. Every item had a memory. Every property told a story. At first, the process felt painful, like peeling away layers of an identity I had spent decades building. But as each house sold, each room emptied, something shifted. I felt lighter. I felt relief. It was as if every sale freed up not just physical space, but mental and emotional energy too. I kept only what served my children and my work. Everything else, gone. Today, I live in a small rented house. I own very few things. And what's wild is that I feel richer than ever before. With fewer distractions, my mind is sharper. I'm more present with my kids. I have more energy for the work that matters most. Here's what I learned: possessions promise freedom, but most of the time, they steal it instead. They look like status, but they become chains. One moment made this crystal clear. After selling my houses, I opened a storage box and found an insanely expensive watch I had forgotten I even owned. It had been sitting untouched for years. Once, I thought it was priceless. In reality, it added zero value to my life. So I gave it away. And the act of letting it go brought me more joy than owning it ever did. This isn't about rejecting all material things. A comfortable bed, tools that let you create, objects with genuine sentimental meaning, these are worth keeping. But most of what we hold on to? They're anchors disguised as treasures. The truth is, we don't realize how much time we lose maintaining our stuff, cleaning it, organizing it, insuring it, worrying about it. When I cut all of that out, I gained back hours of my life every single week. Hours I could spend building, creating, living. Minimalism, for me, wasn't about deprivation. It was about alignment. Making sure that everything around me had a real purpose. That every possession earned its place. And when you live that way, your priorities become crystal clear. I started to see wealth differently. Real wealth isn't measured by what you can buy. Real wealth is measured by what you can walk away from. By how little you need to feel complete. This shift didn't just change my personal life, it changed how I run my companies. At Tesla and SpaceX, we apply the same principle: cut everything that isn't essential, focus intensely on what truly matters, and move faster because of it. Simplicity isn't just personal freedom. It's a competitive advantage. When I look back now at the giant homes I once owned, filled with objects that looked impressive but drained me quietly, I don't feel regret. I feel like I escaped a trap. A trap that so many people fall into, confusing owning with living, collecting with succeeding. True success isn't about more. It's about less. It's about having the space to think clearly, to love deeply, to focus on what matters most. I didn't sell everything because I had to. I sold everything because I chose freedom over possession. And that decision has been worth more than every mansion, every car, every piece of art I ever let go of. So if there's one thing I'd tell my younger self, or anyone listening, it's this: stop asking, "What can I get?" Start asking, "What do I actually need?" Because the greatest luxury you can ever own is clarity. And the greatest wealth you can ever have is freedom.